It started with sirens, red and blue lights flooding our living room like some crime show. But this wasn't TV. This was real. I was watching through the blinds, holding my breath, not understanding what I was seeing. My 9-year-old brother was on the ground, crying, and in the middle of it all, Karen, arms crossed, pretending she was the victim. That moment plays in my head like it's on repeat. My little brother, toy Nerf gun, a fake SWAT mission in our own front yard. And somehow it ended with real police yelling commands at a child. I remember blinking, thinking, this can't be happening. But it was. You know those split seconds when your body freezes but your brain is sprinting? That's what it felt like. It's not like we didn't know Karen was trouble. She gave us her HOA rulebook before she gave us her name. First day we moved in, she walked over, handed my dad a paper and said, "Let's not have any misunderstandings." But we tried to stay quiet, stay respectful. My dad had seen enough battles in life. He wasn't looking for another one. He used to be SWAT, real SWAT, breach doors, extract hostages, stare danger in the eye SWAT. And now, here he was, frozen behind me, watching a cop shout at his youngest son. A foam dart rolled near my foot. I picked it up and just stared. Let me jump back a bit. A week before the incident, my brother was obsessed with this Tactical Kids YouTube channel. He wanted to play like the kids he saw, missions, hideouts, the works. He made this little cardboard base behind a bush near the porch. We helped him paint it camo green. It was just a kid's game. The Nerf gun? It looked slightly realistic, sure. It was black and gray, a new model with a scope. But the tip was neon orange, bright enough to glow. Karen saw him crouched behind a shrub that afternoon and decided she was in a war zone. I remember the exact moment she screamed. It was shrill, like something out of a horror movie. "He's pointing a weapon at me." I ran outside just as my brother dropped the gun and said, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." But she was already on the phone with 911, telling them she feared for her life. The cops showed up so fast it was dizzying. Tires screeching, doors flying open. One cop had his hand on his holster as he approached. I yelled, "He's 9. It's a toy." My dad stepped between them calmly, hands up, military posture still in his bones. "That's my son. He's just playing. Please lower your voice." The tension could have shattered glass. Karen was still yelling from her driveway. She pointed at my brother like he was some kind of criminal. "He threatened me. He aimed right at me." One of the officers looked at the toy gun and exhaled sharply. "Ma'am, this is a Nerf blaster." She didn't care. "I know what I saw." No, she didn't. She saw power slipping out of her hands. That's all it ever was with her. Here's what made it worse. After the cops left, no charges filed, no apology, no understanding, we got a notice from the HOA. A fine. For brandishing a weapon on HOA grounds. A foam dart shooter. My dad sat at the kitchen table that night and didn't say a word for a long time. He had taken bullets in operations. Seen chaos most people couldn't imagine. But this was worse because it happened to his child. In front of his own home. And it wasn't some criminal who did it. It was a neighbor. Someone who waved every morning. Someone who lived 30 feet away. I watched him take out a small, black notebook. He hadn't touched it in months. He opened it slowly and wrote something down. Incident log, 4:26 p.m. Karen called PD on my son for playing. Nerf blaster. Officer de-escalated. No threat confirmed. HOA fine issued. No investigation. Pattern forming. Pattern forming. That line haunts me because it meant something had shifted in him. We were never a get revenge kind of family. We didn't fight fire with fire. But that night, something hardened. And the worst part? This wasn't the first time Karen had done something like this. We just didn't know it yet. It was only later, once everything started coming out, that we found out she had a history. With kids, with families, with anyone she couldn't control. She called animal control on a therapy dog because it barked once. She fined a woman for having a pink mailbox. Said it violated visual harmony. She had cameras, not on her door, but pointed at other people's homes. Every time she felt powerless, she filed a complaint. But calling the police on a kid? That was new. That crossed a line even she couldn't smooth over. There's this one image burned into my memory. My little brother, sitting in the hallway, still in his camo vest, just holding his Nerf gun like it betrayed him. He didn't speak for hours. Not because he was scared of the cops, because he thought he did something wrong. That's what broke me, and I think it broke something in Dad, too. He stood there for a long time watching the security camera footage on loop. He watched Karen yell, watched my brother flinch, watched himself step into the frame slow and steady. Then he said the words I'll never forget. She messed with the wrong kid. That wasn't a threat. That was a promise. What happened next wasn't loud or explosive. It was quiet, surgical, strategic. Exactly how Dad used to move when he was on mission. The weirdest part? Karen didn't look scared when the police left that day. She looked proud, like she thought she won. She walked back to her porch like she had just saved the neighborhood from a terrorist. But all she really did was traumatize a kid and embarrass herself. The day after the incident, my little brother refused to go outside. His favorite Nerf gun sat untouched in the corner of the room. He looked at it like it was cursed. I caught him whispering to himself, "I didn't mean to hurt anyone." That's when my dad made up his mind. He didn't shout. He didn't make threats. He just pulled out an old case folder, one he used when he was still with SWAT. Inside were notes, codes, printed neighborhood maps, and a cheap digital recorder. Stuff he kept for training or consulting. But now it was personal. We were watching a movie in the living room when he stood up suddenly and said, "Come with me." I followed him outside. He pointed to the HOA bulletin board near the gate. "What do you see?" he asked. I looked. Just the same rule sheets. Pet waste signs. Karen's flyer about weed height limits. He nodded slowly. "Exactly. The HOA doesn't manage the neighborhood. Karen does. And it's time we show people what she really is." Let me pause here for a second. If you're watching this and you've ever had a neighbor like Karen, or seen someone abuse power in a community, then do me a favor, hit that subscribe button right now. We're not just telling stories. We're shining a light on real people misusing fake authority. And trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. Because what my dad did next, it wasn't revenge. It was justice. He started by taking photos, not just of our property but of every house Karen had filed complaints against. Lawn length, toys out, seasonal flags, garbage bins left overnight. He logged everything. Then he visited 3 other families who'd had run-ins with her. All of them had stories. One woman said Karen reported her son's lemonade stand because it disrupted traffic. Another said Karen called code enforcement because her welcome mat said, "Go away." Each family gave my dad permission to film interviews. Casual, low light, face blurred if needed. He pieced everything together into a 12-minute video called "When an HOA Becomes One Woman's Playground." He didn't publish it online. Not yet. Instead, he printed out a QR code and posted it on every mailbox post in the neighborhood. He didn't use our name. He didn't write a threat. The note simply said, "Before you file your next complaint, watch this." By noon, the street was buzzing. Neighbors walking their dogs slowed down, phones out, scanning the code. We even saw Karen's husband, quiet guy, never talks, looking at his screen with a confused frown. And then came the meeting. Karen had called for a community emergency session after the video started making rounds. She claimed she was being targeted. Dad walked in calm, clipboard in hand, dressed in his old academy polo. People whispered when he entered. A few even nodded. Karen stood at the front trying to control the room. "Someone has launched a smear campaign against me using stolen footage." That's when Dad raised his hand. "Footage was given willingly," he said. "All from neighbors who've been falsely fined, harassed, or shamed." Karen laughed nervously. "He's not even on the board. He shouldn't be speaking." But one of the other board members, a middle-aged guy named Tom, spoke up. "Actually, he's allowed. And frankly, I want to hear what he has to say." Dad laid out his findings like a detective presenting a case. He showed printouts of fines Karen issued without board approval. highlighted timestamps of complaints filed minutes after her cameras recorded innocent activity. Side-by-side photos of violations she ignored on her own home. Like an illegal spotlight she installed that pointed at a neighbor's baby room window. Gasps. Actual gasps. Karen turned red, then pale, then red again, and then the bomb dropped. Dad played a 30-second audio clip from his own home security camera. It was the day she called the police on my brother. In the background, before dialing, you could hear her mutter to herself, "Let's see what the cops say about this little brat." Silence. No one spoke. Even Karen stopped breathing for a second. Someone from the back finally said, "She wanted to escalate it," and another whispered, "She really called the cops on a child." Karen tried to recover, stuttering, "I didn't know he was a kid. He had something that looked like a weapon." Dad raised a photo, one that showed my brother crouched in a bush, foam darts scattered around him, clearly playing. "Does this look like a threat?" he asked. Karen didn't answer, but her power, it vanished in that room. The board voted to temporarily suspend her from filing any complaints. They launched a review of her past reports. Several people, including 2 families who had moved away, were invited to submit statements. And the police? They were sent a copy of the footage too. We weren't after criminal charges. Not yet, but we wanted accountability. For my brother. For the neighborhood. For everyone Karen had intimidated behind her fake smile and clipboard. That night, my brother finally went outside again. Just for a few minutes. He didn't pick up the Nerf gun, but he rode his bike. I watched from the porch, heart thudding, afraid Karen might show up again. But her blinds stayed closed. And it wasn't over, because 2 days later, someone broke into our mailbox. Not to steal, but to deliver something. An envelope. No return address. Just a single piece of paper inside. "You made a mistake. This isn't over." My dad held it in the light. Then he looked at me with a stare I hadn't seen since his active duty days. He folded the paper slowly and said, "We've dealt with worse. What we didn't know was..." This time it wasn't just about Karen anymore. The HOA itself had secrets. Ones we hadn't even begun to uncover. The note didn't scare us, but it said something loud without saying much. "You made a mistake. This isn't over." No signature. No return address. Just blocky black ink on thick white paper, slipped into our mailbox sometime after midnight. My dad stood there holding it under the porch light, face calm but jaw tight. He'd seen that kind of threat before, short, vague, confident. The kind of message cowards send when they realize you're not backing down. He didn't say anything. He just walked back inside, locked the door behind him, and placed the paper in a Ziploc bag like evidence. That's when I realized this wasn't just about Karen anymore. See, when you push against people who've had unchecked power for too long, they push back. Hard. What we thought was just a one-woman crusade against kids and chalk art. It turned out to be a whole system of cover-ups, connections, and fake rules, and Karen was just the gatekeeper. After her little police stunt, and after the emergency meeting exposed her lies, she went quiet. No morning walks, no angry emails, no glares from her driveway, but something felt off. Started small. Our security camera caught a man walking past our house at 2 a.m. He didn't do anything, just stopped in front of our mailbox, stared, and walked away, face hidden under a hoodie. Next day, we found a sticky note on our recycling bin. It said, "Eyes on you." No signature, just that. My dad didn't overreact. He went straight into calm, calculated mode. He installed 2 more cameras, one angled at the road, one at the side yard. He even updated the firmware on our system so it couldn't be hacked. But me, couldn't sleep. Every noise outside sounded like a knock. Every shadow near the window made my heart race. And that's when it happened. The thing that told us this rabbit hole went way deeper than Karen's clipboard and fake HOA power. Came from Mr. Baker. Now, Mr. Baker was a quiet man who lived 3 houses down. Former postal worker. Always polite. Mowed his lawn every Thursday like clockwork. He knocked on our door one afternoon, hat in hand. Nervous, like he wasn't sure if he should even be talking to us. "I heard what happened," he said. To your boy. With the police. Dad nodded and invited him in. He sat down at the kitchen table, cleared his throat, then slid over a thin folder. Inside, copies of financial statements from the HOA's discretionary budget. Money that was supposed to go to repairs, landscaping, security patrols, but a lot of it had no receipts, no explanations, thousands of dollars. Gone. What's this? My dad asked. Mr. Baker looked around like he expected someone to be listening. That's what Karen doesn't want people to see, he said. She's not just loud. She's part of something. She's covering for someone. We sat in silence for a few seconds. Then my dad asked the question that changed everything. How did you get this? Baker sighed. I used to handle HOA mail before I retired. I kept copies, just in case. That just in case? It was now. Turns out Karen's husband, Tom, wasn't just a quiet guy who nodded during barbecues. He was the HOA's treasurer, and he had been funneling funds to contractors, fake ones, companies that didn't exist, invoices that didn't match any real work done. And guess who signed off on most of those? Karen. Suddenly, it all made sense. The fines, the complaints, the surveillance, the threats. It wasn't just about power over the neighborhood. It was about money, and they were hiding behind HOA rules to keep everyone distracted. Call the cops on a kid? Distract them from the missing $3,000 last quarter. Fine a single mom for her garden gnome? They'll never ask why the pool hasn't been cleaned in 6 months. My dad looked over the paperwork like a detective reading a cold case file. These are federal crimes, he said quietly. Mr. Baker nodded. That's why I never said anything. I was scared. But after what she did to your son, he didn't finish the sentence. That night, Dad scanned everything. Saved backups, printed copies, filed a complaint directly to the state HOA regulatory office and to our city council. He also passed everything along to a private investigator he used to work with on task force cases. Within 48 hours, we got a reply, under review. That's how things move in these systems, quietly, legally, but steadily. Meanwhile, the neighborhood began to shift. We didn't post anything. No online drama. No community gossip. But the tension? It was thick. One morning we saw a for sale sign go up in front of Karen's house. Just like that. No warning. She hadn't spoken to anyone. She wasn't outside. Even her dog wasn't barking anymore. It looked like she was slipping away. But then, the explosion happened. Not literal, but social. The HOA sent out an email blast to the entire neighborhood. Short, cold, no explanation. Effective immediately, Karen L. and Tom L. have resigned from the HOA board. An audit of past expenditures will begin this month. We ask all homeowners for patience during this transition. That was it. No apology, no confession, no drama. But the message was clear. They got caught. People started talking. Some angry, some shocked, some just confused. But there was this one woman, new mom, lived 2 doors down, who walked past our house a few days later with her baby in a stroller and said something that stuck with me. Thanks for standing up. Not many would. And you know what? She was right. It would have been easier to let it go, to accept the fine, to stay quiet and blend in. But when someone uses fear to control people, especially kids, they don't stop unless someone makes them. The next week, the HOA hosted a new community meeting. This time, my dad was invited to speak. He didn't go in with notes or anger. He just told the story. About the day his son was treated like a criminal. About the way silence lets bullies grow. And about how neighborhoods aren't meant to feel like prisons. When he finished, no one clapped. But everyone nodded. It wasn't over, though. Not yet. Because right as we walked to the parking lot after the meeting, a man approached us. Tall, bald, gray coat. He handed my dad a business card. State Investigator. Financial Crimes Division. He said, "We'd like to speak with you about your report. Some things don't add up. And this might be bigger than just this neighborhood." We froze. So now it wasn't just Karen. It was a chain. And we had just pulled the first link. The man in the gray coat didn't smile. He didn't blink much either. He handed my dad his card and said, "The pattern matches 3 other HOAs we've been investigating. Same kind of fake fines. Same kind of shady vendors. Same intimidation." My dad nodded slowly, taking the card without a word. But I could tell. The way his shoulders straightened. The way he tucked the card inside his jacket like a piece of evidence. He knew this wasn't over. This wasn't just about us. This was bigger. That night, I overheard a call from the other room. "Yeah," my dad said quietly. "I have more. Copies. Statements. Security footage. It's all documented." Pause. "Yes, and I'm willing to testify." I froze. Testify. That meant court. That meant Karen and Tom weren't just going to move away quietly. They were being looked at. Investigated. The next week, a black SUV with tinted windows parked near the HOA office building. 2 men in suits got out and carried thick folders. Later, we found out that those folders had copies of everything Dad submitted, plus bank records the HOA thought no one would ever check. That same day, Karen's house went dark. Literally. No porch lights. No window lights. No sign of the car in the driveway. Curtains drawn like a haunted house. It was like she vanished. But she hadn't, because just 3 days later it happened. 6:14 a.m. I was brushing my teeth when I heard the knock. Not a soft one. It was sharp. Official. My dad opened the door, and there they were. 2 officers. Plain clothes. Badge lanyards around their necks. "Thomas and Karen L?" one asked. My dad didn't even flinch. 3rd house down. Beige with the stone trim. 10 minutes later, I saw them being walked out of their home. Hands cuffed. Faces pale. Karen didn't say a word. Tom tried to say something, but the officer just guided him into the back of the car. No neighbors came outside, but you could tell they were all watching behind curtains, blinds slightly open. The whole neighborhood had been holding its breath for months, and now it exhaled. That afternoon, the HOA board sent out another email. Only this time it was different. To our residents, due to recent findings and law enforcement actions, we are launching a full third-party audit of past HOA practices, fines, and expenditures. We are deeply sorry to the families who were affected. Effective immediately, all fines issued by the previous board are suspended. New board elections will be held. It was the closest thing we'd ever get to an apology. But the real moment of peace came quietly. I was walking back from school the next day and saw my little brother crouched behind the bush near the porch again. Same camo vest. Same foam darts scattered in the grass. He looked up and smiled. "Wanna play?" he asked. I didn't even think twice. I dropped my backpack and jumped behind the tree with him. And for the first time in months, we laughed. Not forced. Not nervous. Just pure joy. We even built a cardboard base again, this time bigger than before. My dad helped paint it. He added a sign above the little Nerf turret that said, "Free zone. No HOA bullies allowed." And we meant it. The best part? The neighborhood changed too. People started waving again. Kids rode scooters on sidewalks without looking over their shoulders. The woman with the therapy dog walked past our house and said, "He's finally off his meds. Thank you for standing up. We didn't become heroes or anything. But we did take back something that never should have been stolen. Our peace." My dad stayed involved in the community after that, but not in an official role. He didn't want power. He wanted protection. He started a Know Your Rights club for residents. They met twice a month, shared stories, read the actual HOA bylaws out loud, word for word, so people knew when they were being lied to. One night, I saw him talking to a young couple on their porch. They were new to the neighborhood. They looked worried, nervous. You could tell they were already feeling the pressure of the rules. I overheard my dad say, "Don't let fear be your welcome mat. This is your home, not her kingdom." I'll never forget that, because that's what this whole thing came down to. One woman tried to turn a neighborhood into a chessboard. She thought she was the queen. Everyone else just pawns. But when you mess with the wrong family, when you call the cops on a child, when you twist rules for your own gain, you find out real fast, not everyone plays your game. Some of us flipped the board. So if you're watching this and you've dealt with an HOA Karen or some clipboard dictator who forgot what community means, just remember, you have rights, you have power, and most importantly, you're not alone. Thanks for watching our story. If you want more real stories like this, true ones with twists and comebacks, don't forget to subscribe, because we're not done exposing the fake rulers hiding behind HOA rulebooks. We're just getting started.